Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hi, I'm Rob Charney, Old Guy Tech TV, and we're here today with Honorable Warren Curt Stracener, running for Judge, Superior Court in El Dorado County. Curt, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's our privilege to have you here. And the whole idea that we do with our shows is kind of just get to know the person and what's going on and how are things going and how's the campaign going and that kind of thing is basically what we do. So I always want to get to know people a little bit. So why don't you just give us a little idea of, you know, where you've been, how's life treated you, the jobs you've held. Let's just talk about some different things.
Well, life's treated me very well. I'm glad to say. As you know, I've been a judge here on the El Dorado County Superior Court bench since December 2010. That's when I was appointed by the governor. Actually assumed the robes in January, but I was actually appointed in December 2010. And have been sitting and handling the dependency, delinquency, and traffic court calendars on the West Slope since that time.
Oh, wow.
Prior to that, I was a litigator for the state of California for over 20 years. Had tremendous experiences that took me through all levels of the judiciary. Had lots of different kinds of cases, First Amendment cases, bankruptcy cases, and lots of labor and employment law cases, multi-million-dollar cases, so on and so forth.
Wow.
My background before that was I was a school teacher, and that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of. Taught high school for 11 years.
Wow.
8 of it down there in El Camino High School down in Sacramento. And it was through working on my master's degree in education that I had kind of stumbled into law. Took a school law class, discovered that not only did I like it, but I had a talent for it, and that's what then kind of triggered me to go off and enroll in law school. So for 7 years of my 8 years of teaching, I was going to night school.
Wow.
Working on my master's, got that completed in 3 years, and then 4 years in law school.
Where'd you go to law school?
McGeorge.
McGeorge,
UOP,
great. Yeah, great school. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's really neat. Well, then, and let's just ask a question. What was your favorite course of law school?
I don't think you can have one.
Yeah?
You're not supposed to have them. No, but actually for me, and this is kind of one of those things where your career kind of finds you as opposed to sometimes you searching out your career. I went to law school to pursue what was called education law, a theme in education law. And a subcategory of that is labor law, labor and employment law. And that's where I really, I think, took off. So my favorite courses were labor law.
Labor law.
I had a mentor, a professor that I met there, and he had a similar background to mine in that he had been done labor work back in New York for school districts. And when he heard that I was a teacher in the in his course, he first picked on me, but then he made me better.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
You know, we all have them. What do you consider your strengths and weaknesses?
Well, strengths, of course, I think would be hard work. One of the things that that's always been part of my upbringing is hard work. I work very hard. That's why I was able to teach during the day and go to school at night on my master's and then on my law degree. And then when I practice law, of course, it's the practice of law, if you're going to be good at it, it's a very demanding job.
Right.
And I think I was pretty good at it, and it was a very demanding job. And, I bring that same work ethic to the bench. I do my cases during court hours and then work after hours getting prepared for the next day's cases.
Yeah, so it's quite a workload.
Yeah.
How many cases do you hear in a day as an average?
Well, it kind of depends on the calendar, but let's say a typical dependency calendar, this is involving CPS, I might hear our calendars are currently running between 30 and 35 a day. And that would be typically a Friday. And then you have sprinkled in throughout the work week, or throughout the week, what are called detention hearings. So these would be cases where a kid, arrest warrant has been picked up, or CPS has gone out to somebody's house, and they got to they're going to remove the kids from the parents for some reason. So they have to have a right to a due process hearing within 48 hours of detention. So that comes in front of me, and we're actually hearing on average. On average, about one a day. Now, the way it really works is you don't hear anything for 2 days, and then you hear 4 in a day. And you got to plug those in, because you're on a strict timeline. You got to plug those in, and our detention calendars are set for 3:30 every day. So, like tomorrow, I know I have 3. At least that's what they were yesterday, but there could be another one.
Yeah.
And so that would be just that calendar. In terms of our delinquency calendar, that would be juvenile crimes. We're probably averaging about, I'm going to say 25 to 30 cases on a Monday. And then Tuesdays are dedicated to trials, all-day trials. Just trials. And then Wednesdays and half of Thursdays are traffic.
Wow. So how is the juvenile crime situation in El Dorado County? I haven't heard anything about that.
Well, we have our share of juvenile crimes, and one of the things that I have seen in the last 6 months, I can give you kind of a snapshot picture of, I've been on the bench almost 2 years now, about 20 months, I think. So from the first year that I was on the bench, I didn't see a single case involving heroin. And the main drugs I saw was marijuana and meth.
Right.
And then a selection of just juvenile crimes, kids doing dumb things, breaking and entering, vandalism, that sort of thing. In the last 6 months, I'm alarmed to say that I've probably seen about 10 or 12 cases involving heroin.
Really?
Now, I have to say that that's not just delinquency. That's also dependency, that 10 or 12 cases.
Right.
The ones I've seen in dependency are kids being born addicted to heroin.
Oh, my.
And that's very disturbing and troubling, but I've seen now, I'm just, rough number, about 9 cases like that in the last 6 months. In terms of juvenile delinquency, I've seen 2 in the last 6 months where the kids were deep into it. We had one case, 17-year-old kid, been shooting up for 6 months, shoots up twice a week. And then in another case, a kid has been smoking heroin for 6 months. And so very, very tragic cases, but they're here.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Yeah. It's down in Sacramento, but it's also here.
Right. What about gang situations? Are these kids also being involved in some of the gangs?
Well, you do see an influx. You do see gangs up here, but not like the gangs that you see down in Sacramento, and not like the gangs you see in Southern California. And I can make that comparison because I lived down in Southern California for about 7-8 years. I also, remember I said I had 8 years here at El Camino High School.
Right.
3 years prior to that, I was in Southern California, and I was a long-term substitute. I taught at Continuation High School, and I saw some tough kids.
Yeah, I bet.
And I taught in the heart of the Hispanic community down there, and you saw some tough kids, and you saw some tough gang activity. And and then, of course, with the state, I've been in probably over half the prisons in the state of California, and that's a whole different level of gang activity, but it's there. So we don't see that level of gang activity up here. Some people will say it's more wannabe gangs.
Right.
Kids that are shouting out Norteño and Soteño and that kind of stuff, or Jucolos and that kind of stuff, but they're not actually out boosting cars and that sort of thing.
Right. Well, I guess it's good and bad, isn't it?
Well, it's very good that we don't see that level of activity here, but it's also bad in that there's any activity here, because it really shows that kids are looking for something to connect with.
Right.
And it's unfortunate when they're going to connect with a criminal element.
Yeah. Well, we know what happens. I've got one that I thought was kind of interesting. I was looking over the justices in the Supreme Court. Do you have one justice that you think is your favorite? Did you call your favorite?
Yeah, I do. Justice Kennedy. I'm talking about the U.S. Supreme Court now.
Yes, right.
Justice Kennedy. He was my con law professor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you talk about favorite classes, I was talking about the labor law, and I was talking about my professor Don Wallet, who was also a baseball arbitrator and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
So but my other favorite professor was Justice Kennedy, and his wife was a school teacher in Sacramento City Unified School District.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
wow.
out there at McGeorge, when word gets out that I'm a school teacher, and I know he didn't call on me more often than anyone else, but it sure seemed like he had a lot of questions for me, and especially when he got into the areas of because so much of the civil rights law rose in the education arena, so much of the First Amendment. Free speech, school newspapers, all that kind of stuff, all First Amendment issues, and those were coming up, and we're dealing with them. We're talking about them in class, and so he's my favorite professor.
I bet. Have you been able to keep in touch with him?
No, no. Yeah. I mean, once.
Wouldn't that be fun though?
Yeah. Oh, of course it would. And he got appointed to the bench, and that was and that was the last I saw him.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. Well, it's it's a nice position.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, how about a little bit of off the books situation here? What do you do in your free time? Do you have any?
Well, yeah, you're gonna. That's a hard question, because I don't have any free time. Pre-campaign, pre-campaign was spending time with the family. My daughter was in youth basketball. So I was involved with youth basketball. I wasn't a coach with the basketball, because that requires coaching during the week, and I'm getting prepared for my cases during the week and evenings. But in terms of on the weekends, I would do scorekeeping kinds of things, but more so being with my daughter.
Right.
And then. She was also in the whole world centers around her. She's 11-year-old, so it's centered around her. She was also in the Tasmanian Devils Swim Club, which is a private swim. It's not private; it's a swim club up there in El Dorado Hills.
Oh, okay.
And so she was involved in that. And so I'm up there every morning at 5:30 or 6 a.m. in the morning. You got to set up the tent, get out there, get set up, and then I would help out, do volunteer stuff with the group. So because you got to go do not scorekeeping but timekeeping, getting the kids ready, getting them on their blocks, getting them in the right order, all that kind of stuff that I would put in my time.
Well, I can see enjoying that.
Yeah, that was really great.
That's neat.
This summer, not so much. Okay,
Yeah.
This summer, not participating too much in those things, just because the summer we just completed.
Well, I know, and campaigning is just a 24/7 situation. So there's no doubt about it. Well, let's talk about some issues in the state of California, and one of the issues that I always talk about, and it's two, but let's start out with the one that I'm. When I look at how I'm going to vote, one of the things I do is I'm a big Second Amendment supporter, and I believe in the Second Amendment, and I look at that stance more than anything else right now, because I feel we're at a situation in this country where we're losing our firearms rights incredibly fast now. What's your stance on the Second Amendment?
Well, I'm obviously, maybe it's not obvious, I am a big supporter of the Second Amendment. I think it's obvious, I would say, because I just received the NRA endorsement, and I also received the gun owner's endorsement. So those are two major endorsements, and I received them because I am a strong Second Amendment supporter. I was rated, they gave a QA rating for me, which is their highest rating, which is why I got the endorsement from the NRA.
That's great.
And as you know, I just recently completed everything I need to do for my CCW.
Right.
And the only thing left is for me to get a firearm and get it, take it and have the serial numbers put on for the certificate and that sort of thing. In addition to that, I've been a lifelong gun owner. I've owned guns going back to maybe 13 or 14. I remember the very first gun course I went through was at Sears down there, which is now Arden Mall. There was my mom took me to it. He says, "Here,
right.
and
Was it a hunter safety course?
Yes,
yeah,
it was a hunter safety course, but you had to have that. I wanted a 22, and she said, "Not until you take this course." So, I think it was. It seemed like it was 3 or 4 Saturdays. Now,
probably
again, I was 14.
Yeah,
It might have only been one Saturday.
No. I think you're right.
Yeah, but I seem to recall it interfering with my Saturdays, having to go down there and do it for, I think it was 4 or 6 hours at a time.
Yeah,
buddy
it
of mine,
was.
we took it.
Yeah,
and but it taught me respect for guns, and then, like I say, I started my first gun was a 22 bolt action, and then that gun I actually don't know what happened to it, but then I bought a shotgun, goose gun, single shot with a 3-inch chamber,
right,
for getting geese, and I still own that one.
Yeah.
And so,
did you ever get to go out and hunt geese or duck or anything?
I have, but not recently.
Yeah,
I mean, probably not in 10 years. You know, there used to be able to go out before they actually built the airport. You know, there was a time we didn't have that Sacramento airport out there. So that's how far back I go. But we go out there hunting pheasant.
Sure.
And so we'd go out there do that.
It's all that farmland out there.
Yeah,
it's very
the
good
rice
for the
fields.
pheasants. Yeah, absolutely.
And the stuff would jump up, and you could go out there and do that. Now I'm sure they don't let you do that anymore, but
not around the airport.
Yeah.
But there's still a number of clubs out there.
Yeah.
And so they're still enjoying
well,
that.
they have the pheasant club out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were over. You know, actually, as I remember it, the fields that we used to walk are the fields where Arco Arena is.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Be about right area. Well, we're on the topic of CCWs. And, you know, California is in a may issue state, not a shall issue state. What's your position on concealed weapons permits?
I think that it's a Second Amendment right to be able to possess and own a gun. And so that's my position on it.
Well, you know, concealed weapons permits, of course, go a little bit further than just the ability to own and keep a firearm, of course. We're talking about the ability to carry a firearm concealed in public and in most places. And do you feel that we should try to move California out of the may issue to a shall issue?
Yes. I think that people who are properly trained and have meet the legal requirements. Obviously, you don't want to have a felon to have one, somebody who has a mental health condition, something like that, history of drug abuse, those sorts of things. But for the regular citizen, I think it's a right that they should be able to carry a concealed weapon.
So you mentioned about mental illness and that type of situation. Medical records are kept private. Yes. I do not want my medical records exposed to anybody. That's between me, my family, my doctor. So that brings up an issue. How, you know, when it's said that, you know, if somebody's got mental issues or have a problem, I think some of the anti-gunners want to go even further and invade your privacy as far as your medical records. Where do you stand on that?
I haven't really thought of that. I think that there probably is a right to look at the background on someone to see if they are a convicted felon, to see if they have a history, documented history of mental health issues, so I think that that's probably justified. I'm not certain how much further they should be able to dig on things, but you know, we know, is it I want to say John Wayne Gacy is the individual that shot Reagan. Or I'm getting mixed up.
But now we're both going to have a senior moment here.
Yeah.
But anyway, your point was
anyway, the whoever it was that shot Reagan and then the person who shot John Lennon clearly had mental health issues.
Right.
And they shouldn't have been able to probably to be able to acquire a gun, and I'm not certain that they did acquire a gun lawfully.
Well, statistics show that most crimes that are used with a gun like that, they're generally stolen firearms.
Yes.
They're rarely
Yes, thank you,
What
John
was it our
Hinckley.
producer who said?
John Hinckley?
John Hinckley.
Yes,
that's
that's
it. That's it. That's right. Thank you. That's why we have producers here.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no, you did to me. Well, anyway, so my point
You
is
talk about statistics. and
statistics. Yeah, statistically, the firearms that are used in crimes are generally stolen.
Yes.
There's exceptions to that, which unfortunately was a recent situation in the Colorado shootings that took place, and that's unfortunate there.
Right.
So what is let's go into that area. Well, what's your feelings on the so-called black guns or assault weapons? How do you feel about those?
Well, again, I think that I'm not certain exactly how you're going to define an assault weapon, but I think that's protected by the Second Amendment as well.
Right. In California, the way assault weapons is defined has to do with what the gun looks like, believe it or not. It's more like, does it have a flash hider and a pistol grip in a large magazine?
Right.
What does it have? And it's one of the worst laws I've ever seen for any state at all. Talking about draconian, it's just ridiculous. And we almost had a situation where it was this idiot Lee in the Bay Area. I'm sorry, I'm saying my piece here. Was trying to ban any of those type. And so you believe again that that's an individual right to bear arms.
Right. Yes. Yes,
Right.
I do. And just so you know, I'm talking about my personal beliefs.
Sure,
as
sure.
what I
No, I
believe,
understand.
and I'm not talking about any particular statute, and I want to make it real clear, I'm not talking about how I would necessarily rule on something, because I obviously can't do that. There are
Right.
canons of judicial ethics that prevent me from saying, well, if this issue came before me, here's how.
Yeah, I wouldn't
rule
want
with
that.
it.
Yeah,
I know. I'm
understood.
just making that clear.
Sure.
My personal beliefs might be one thing, and how I'm going to have to administer the law that's in front of me
Right.
is going to be, maybe different.
Sure. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So let's look at a judicial rotation, because it's my understanding that that the judge situation, that you could change from your court that you're in now to a different court. Is that correct? Can that happen?
No,
or?
it's not correct.
Okay,
and
I didn't know.
And I know that there's some misinformation going around.
Let's
on
straighten that out.
Yeah. Typically, it is true that in larger court systems, they tend to rotate the judges every 2 years.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So they might take a probate judge, and then they'll move them over into family law, and then they might move them over to the civil or something like that. Sacramento would do that.
Okay.
In a smaller rural court system like ours, that's less common. For example, our current criminal law judge has been in his assignment, I think, for almost 8 years, so he hasn't been rotated once in 8 years.
Okay.
In terms of the thing I want to say about juvenile delinquency and dependency, which is my assignment, it's actually written into the rules that assignment, that the presiding judge who makes these kind of assignments is to give great consideration to leaving a judge in that assignment for a minimum of 3 years, for a minimum of 3 years.
Okay.
And the reason, and this is written into the advisory notes to the regulation, the reason is that being a juvenile court judge requires a special skill and intense study. That's what the language of it says.
All right.
And they want to give judges a preference for those assignments who are interested in those assignments. And I'm interested in it because that's my background.
Right.
In terms of working with kids in
education and
Yeah.
the youth, sure.
Yeah, and so the rules say minimum of 3 years. The rules go on and further state that such judges who have an interest are to be given further consideration in it. And the whole reason is so that they can develop a deep expertise in this subject, because, and the rules go on and talk about that it is cheaper to deal with crimes pre-incarceration, deal with the dependency issues and get them on the right track, deal with the juvenile delinquencies and get them on the right track before they get to be adults, and now it becomes very expensive for us all.
Sure.
So they want judges who desire that assignment and who have a deep expertise in it, and that's me.
Makes a lot of sense. I never looked at it that way. not everybody can be an expert in every field.
Right. That's right.
That's where that brings that up. So that's great. Now I know that. Let's talk about your endorsements a little bit.
Okay.
I know you've got some great endorsements out there. Why don't you tell us some of your endorsements? I know now you said we got NRA
Right.
and and California Rifle and Pistol. No. Gun Owners of
Gun Owners
California.
of California.
Right.
I'm going to give you an exclusive.
Okay.
Okay. I have been endorsed by Governor Pete Wilson.
Oh, wow.
He just announced it to my campaign this week.
Very good.
That is, I think, unprecedented in a trial court, superior
think
court
so.
race.
Yeah.
That a governor would step in and do an endorsement, but he has. I've also been endorsed by the former commissioner of the California Highway Patrol, Maury Hannigan. He's endorsed me. And of course, I have endorsements of wardens from various prisons that I've worked with over the years. Sure. I'm not to diminish. I mean, I'm very proud of my endorsements from the appellate justices, the Third District Court of Appeal. I have the presiding judge of the Third District Court of Appeal, Vance Ray, has endorsed me. I have, and just for the record, I've appeared in front of him numerous times. It was an easy endorsement. He knew me.
Right.
He knew of my legal expertise in front of his court, the Third District Court of Appeal, because I did lots of appellate work. I also did lots of trial work. But in terms of the appellate bench, he knew me. I also have the endorsement of now a retired Justice, Fred Morrison, and he's retired, but I appeared in front of him I won't say many, several times when he was on the appellate bench.
Right.
I remember I practiced in Sacramento for over 20 years, so I had lots of experience there. Interesting footnote on Justice Morrison. He was my evidence professor, so at McGeorge. Also, maybe I should say, he's also one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And at the time that he was my evidence professor, his son was a student in my class at El Camino High School.
Wow, how about that?
So it was an interesting situation. And then, of course, the other justices, Hoke and Morrow, these were justices that I worked with as attorneys. Justice Hoke I worked with off and on for over 20 years, and in various assignments that I had and she had. So she knows me very well in terms of my legal skills. And Justice Morrow worked with him when he was in the governor's office and I was over at the state agency I was at. So I'm very proud of those endorsements. And those are folks, again, who know me, who know my work, who've seen me in action. And then some of the other endorsements, I have over 50 trial court judges. I have teachers. And let me just go back on the trial court judges. Again, these are judges that know me or know me by way of reputation. I appeared in Sacramento Superior Court for over 20 years, and getting their endorsement was a very easy job. Just ask, and they were happy to do it. And they knew me, and those that didn't know me knew me by way of reputation because I had a good reputation around the court.
Right.
And then there was judges that I met since I become to the bench. I want to say the juvenile court judges. I have a number of presiding juvenile court judges. Of course, our own judge, presiding juvenile court judge Stephen Bailey, he's endorsed me.
Right.
And then I probably have about 6 other presiding juvenile court judges from other counties who I have worked with, interfaced with, participated in training with, and so on, who've gotten to know me. So, you know, I've got a pretty good list of endorsements.
You know, it's interesting. I've been involved with politics for quite a while, and I don't remember a judicial race ever as the one that you're in right now. And especially with endorsements from sitting judges, it's kind of unusual, isn't it?
To have sitting judges endorse a candidate? No, that's not unusual.
It's not? I don't remember.
The one thing that judges can do is endorse another judge.
I see. Okay.
They cannot endorse other candidates. For example, I couldn't endorse a candidate for supervisor.
Oh.
I can't do it, prohibited by the rules. I can't endorse a candidate for any kind of legislative office, congressional office, or anything like that. But I can endorse another judge.
Wow!
So that's one of the very.
That's interesting.
That's practically the only thing the only kind of endorsement a judge can give is to another judge.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I love doing this show and learning all kinds of new things. That's great. Well, you know what? We've been doing this for quite a while now. You want to have it? Do you have a wrap up? Would you like to just say to everybody real quick? Or?
Well, I would say, do I
look at that one.
Look at that one. Okay,
yeah, that's you.
I would just encourage everyone to get out and vote on November 6th.
Absolutely.
I would encourage everyone to really think about the juvenile court program. I am passionate about what I'm doing. I selected this assignment. When I applied to be a judge, there was a number of counties that I could have applied for. I selected this county. This is the county that I've lived in. My wife and I have lived in for now 16 years. Mm-hmm. It's a county that I played in when I was a teenager down in Sacramento. We'd come up here and go squirrel hunting and bird hunting and that kind of stuff when you used to be able to go out into the forests up the hill.
Right.
And so, I wanted to come and serve my community locally. As a state employee, I had served the state community and served the taxpayers. But now I wanted to do something more direct to my community, an individual localized community. So I sought out the assignment to be placed here. Mm-hmm. And I just ask voters to consider my passion and dedication to working with kids on that.
That's great. That's great. Well, I've always said that campaigning is one of the most difficult on-take that anybody can do. I mean, it's just a 24/7 job. Mm-hmm. It's what it really is. And I admire anybody willing to get up, stand in front of the public, and speak and go walk, knock on doors, and stand in front of grocery stores and shake hands and all that. And you've done a wonderful job in running. And I really appreciate you coming and visiting with us and spending some time. And we can't wait. We're 35 days in counting.
About 35 in counting.
Yeah, in counting. So it's starting to happen, and we're really looking forward to it. And we'll come and see you election night too.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for coming.
Okay.
We appreciate your honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, another wonderful interview, and please make sure you get out and vote. And this is Rob for Old Guy Tech TV. Thank you for watching. This episode of Old Guy Tech TV is brought to you by Ward's Automotive, specializing in Banks Power and Pack Brake, servicing your car or truck and specializing in diesel engines. Over 30 years of service, located in Diamond Springs, California. Give them a call at 530-626-5588.